I'm 24, and this happened during a long drive to visit my family last winter. It was close to 1 in the morning, and I was hours away from home. The road stretched endlessly in front of me. No other cars, no streetlights, just darkness pressing against the glass of my windshield. The fuel light blinked red, so when I saw a glowing sign for a gas station up ahead, I felt almost relieved. The station sat alone at the side of the highway. One flickering light above the pumps, the rest swallowed by the night. I pulled in, cut the engine, and stepped out. The cold hit me instantly, the kind that makes your breath hang in the air. The place was quiet, too quiet. No music, no cars, just the buzzing of the lamp overhead. I swiped my card, started pumping gas, and glanced at the little convenience store. Behind the wide glass window, a man stood at the counter. He didn't move. He didn't even seem to breathe. He was just staring through the glass. At first I thought maybe he hadn't noticed me, or maybe he was zoning out. I waved slightly. No reaction. He just kept looking in my direction. When the tank was full, I capped it and headed inside to grab a drink and maybe a snack for the road. The bell above the door jingled faintly as I walked in. The air smelled faintly of dust and old coffee. The shelves were mostly empty, except for a few expired bags of chips. The man behind the counter was closer now, like he'd stepped forward while I wasn't looking. His hooded sweatshirt shadowed most of his face, but I could see his eyes, wide open, unblinking. Just this, I muttered, placing a bottle of water on the counter. He didn't answer, didn't reach for the bottle. He just stared. That's when I noticed something unsettling his hands. They were pale, stiff, resting flat on the counter, and they hadn't moved since I first walked in. The silence dragged on until I finally backed away, heart racing, and muttered, "Forget it." As I pushed the door open, the bell jingled again, and I swore I heard it faint breathing behind me. Too close, too steady to be mine. Elle walked quickly back to my car, trying to laugh it off in my head. Maybe the guy was tired. Maybe he was on something. Either way, I didn't want to be around him. The cold night air felt heavier now, pressing against me as I slid into the driver's seat. I locked the doors, started the engine, and tried not to look back at the store. But curiosity got the better of me. Through the glass, I saw him still standing there, except he wasn't behind the counter anymore. He was right against the window, face almost touching the glass, his eyes wide and locked on me. My stomach dropped. I threw the car into reverse, the tires crunching on the gravel. But as my headlights swept across the lot, I froze. There was someone else now, another figure, standing near the pumps. I hadn't heard anyone walk up. No car, no footsteps, just there. I stopped backing up, staring at the second figure. Same pale hands, same stiff posture. It looked like he was facing me, but his head was tilted so far to the side it looked broken. A sharp buzzing sound filled the lot as the overhead light flickered violently, plunging the place into stuttering shadows. For a second, both figures seemed to vanish. Then the light blinked back on, and they were closer. My pulse was hammering in my ears. I slammed the gear shift into drive and floored it, my car lurching forward. Gravel sprayed behind me as the gas station shrank in the rearview mirror. I didn't breathe until the glowing sign was gone behind me, swallowed by the night. But then I realized something that made my skin crawl. My gas gauge still read empty. I hadn't bought enough fuel to make it anywhere.
I drove for maybe 10 minutes, knuckles white on the steering wheel, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The road stretched on endlessly. The trees on both sides, nothing but black silhouettes. The gas light kept flashing. I told myself I just needed to make it to the next station, any town, anything. But the more I drove, the more it felt like the road wasn't taking me anywhere. No signs, no exits, just miles of darkness. When the car finally sputtered and slowed, my stomach dropped. I coasted to the side of the road, engine dead, silence swallowing me whole. I sat there frozen, trying to think. Then the faint sound of gravel crunching. I looked in the rearview mirror. At first, nothing, just empty road. Then I saw them, two figures walking slowly down the center of the lane. My breath caught. They weren't hurrying. They weren't running. Just walking step by step, heads tilted, eyes never blinking. I locked the doors, pressed myself back in the seat. My phone had no signal. The figures kept getting closer. One of them stopped directly behind the car, so close I couldn't see its head in the mirror anymore. The other moved to the side, and I heard the soft scrape of a hand brushing against the metal of the car. I whispered to myself, "Don't look." "Don't move." But curiosity, fear, whatever it was, made me glance to my left. Through the driver's side window, inches from the glass, was a face. White, expressionless, lips stretched into the faintest smile, the eyes wide, staring straight into mine. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And then, without warning, the car lights flickered on. The dashboard lit up, the engine roared back to life without me turning the key. I floored the gas. The car shot forward, leaving the figure shrinking in the mirror. For a moment, I thought I'd escaped. But as I drove, I realized the passenger seat beside me was no longer empty, and the face staring at me from the darkness was the same one pressed to the glass.
My name is Sophia. I'm 31, and this happened last year, not long after I moved into a small house outside of town. I was newly divorced, trying to rebuild my life, and the house was supposed to be a fresh start. It was quiet, surrounded by trees, with just enough distance from neighbors to feel private. One late afternoon, I heard a truck outside. When I opened the door, a plain cardboard package was sitting on the porch. No truck in sight, no footsteps, nothing. The box was large, heavier than I expected when I tried to move it. But what unsettled me most was that it had no shipping label. No address, no name, no markings at all. I carried it inside, leaving it in the living room. For hours, I just ignored it. I told myself maybe a neighbor's delivery got dropped off at the wrong house. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that it didn't belong there. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a noise. A faint thump from downstairs. My heart skipped. I grabbed a flashlight and crept down the steps. The living room was dim, lit only by the streetlight bleeding through the blinds. The package was open. The top flaps had been pulled back like someone had reached in. I froze, whispering to myself that I must have opened it earlier and forgotten, but I knew I hadn't touched it since I set it down. I leaned forward, shining the flashlight. The box was empty, completely empty. That should have calmed me, but it didn't, because when I turned to head back upstairs, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. The box wasn't on the rug anymore. It was sitting in the doorway to the kitchen.
I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I kicked the box without realizing. Maybe I was just tired. I picked it up, carried it back to the living room, and set it against the wall. I locked my bedroom door that night, something I'd never done before in this house. But even with the door closed, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining the sound of cardboard shifting, of something dragging across the floor. When I finally drifted off, it didn't last. A sharp noise woke me like wood creaking. I sat up, straining to listen. The house was silent, until I heard it again, a faint scrape right outside my bedroom door. I froze, staring at the handle. Minutes passed. No more sounds. Slowly, I got out of bed and opened the door. The hallway was empty, but there, at the end of it, sat the package. My throat went dry. I didn't touch it this time. I just stepped back into my room and shut the door. The next morning, sunlight made everything seem less terrifying. The box was gone. I searched the house, every corner, every closet, nothing. It had just disappeared. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. That night, I invited my sister Daniela to stay over. I didn't tell her the whole story, just said I felt uneasy being alone. We stayed up late watching TV in the living room. Everything was normal. Until right after midnight, a thud echoed from the kitchen. Daniela muted the TV. What was that? I already knew. When I stood, I saw it there on the kitchen floor, the box, back again, wide open. And this time there were marks inside, long, deep scratches carved into the cardboard, like something had been clawing to get out. Daniela wanted to leave right away, but it was already past 1 in the morning and the road outside was pitch black. I convinced her to stay, though I wasn't sure if that was the right choice. We tried to ignore the box, but every sound in the house made us jump. The scratching inside the cardboard was louder now, steady like nails dragging against the walls of the box. I grabbed a broomstick, walked into the kitchen, and kicked it hard. The box slid across the floor, but the scratching didn't stop. It only grew faster. Daniela whispered from the doorway, "Sophia, don't." I forced myself to look inside again. For a second, there was nothing but darkness. Then something pale shifted at the bottom. A hand, thin, grayish, fingers too long, snapped up and gripped the edge of the cardboard. I stumbled back, dropping the broom. The hand twitched, then slowly retreated, disappearing into the shadows inside the box. We both stood frozen until Daniela shouted, Get rid of it. Together, we dragged the box out the front door, shoving it onto the porch. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and we collapsed on the couch, shaking. Minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Not a gentle one. 3 heavy bangs. Neither of us moved. Another knock, louder this time. Then silence. We didn't open the door again that night. When the sun finally rose, the porch was empty. The box was gone. I thought maybe it was over. But 2 weeks later, Daniela called me in tears. She'd come home to find a plain cardboard box waiting on her front step. I'd been driving for 9 hours straight when the rain started to fall like sheets of glass. My GPS said the next town was still 50 miles away, and my eyelids felt heavier with every mile. When the sign appeared through the fog, Motel Rest Haven, vacancy, it felt like a small miracle. The place sat right off the highway, barely lit by flickering neon lights. I pulled in, and the only sound was the engine ticking as it cooled. The lobby was empty, except for a single bell on the counter. I rang it once. A door behind the counter creaked open, and a man in his late 60s stepped out. His skin looked gray under the fluorescent light, and his eyes didn't seem to focus directly on me. "Need a room for the night," I said. He nodded slowly, as if thinking about it. Then without a word, he handed me a key, and an actual metal key, with the number 7 etched on it. "Cash only," he finally muttered. I gave him $40, and he smiled faintly. His teeth were strange. Too many of them, or maybe too uneven to count. The hallway leading to the rooms was narrow and smelled faintly of mold and gasoline. Every step made the floorboards creak under my boots. When I reached room 7, the door was already slightly open. I froze. Inside, everything was still. The curtains were drawn, and a dim orange light flickered from an old TV playing static. I called out, "Hello." No answer. I pushed the door open and saw the bed. Sheets wrinkled, pillow dented like someone had just been there, but the room was empty. I almost turned around and left, but exhaustion won. I locked the door, shut off the TV, and lay down. Just before drifting off, I heard it. A faint knocking sound. From the closet. 3 slow taps. Then silence. I told myself it was just the wind. Maybe the rain hitting something inside the walls. But deep down, I knew the sound was too deliberate, too slow. I got out of bed, heart pounding, and turned on the lamp beside me. The light flickered before staying on. The closet door was shut now. I was sure I'd left it slightly open when I came in. I took a deep breath and reached for the handle. It creaked loudly as I pulled it. Open. Nothing, just an old metal rod, with a single empty hanger swinging back and forth. Relieved, I laughed under my breath and shut the door again. But the laughter died when I noticed something under the door. A small, wet footprint, bare human and facing toward the bed. I froze. Someone had been in here. Maybe still was. I checked under the bed, empty. Then behind the bathroom curtain, nothing. Everything looked normal except the faint smell in the air. A mix of gasoline and something metallic. I decided I'd sleep with the lights on. But when I turned off the bathroom light, the TV flicked on by itself, showing only static again. The volume rose suddenly, blaring white noise through the room. I lunged for the remote, but it didn't work. I had to unplug the whole thing from the wall to stop the noise. The silence after that was worse. Lying back in bed, I tried not to breathe too loudly. The sound of the rain outside had softened. I could hear faint creaks from the hallway, and footsteps maybe. Then a soft voice whispered through the thin wall next to me. "Room 7. It sounded hoarse, dragging each word like it hurt to speak. I didn't move. I just stared at the wall, counting my heartbeats. After what felt like forever, the whisper came again. "You shouldn't have come here." I didn't sleep after that. Every minute that passed made the air in the room feel heavier. I kept staring at the wall, afraid to blink. Around 3 a.m., I heard the hallway floor creak again. Slow, dragging steps coming closer. Then a soft tap on my door. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't answer. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed felt like it could break me in half. I waited, holding my breath, until I finally whispered, "Who's there?" Nothing. But when I looked down, I saw it, a shadow under the door. Someone standing just on the other side. Their feet didn't move, just stayed there. Then the door handle began to turn. I leaped out of bed and grabbed my phone, but there was no signal. When I looked back, the handle had stopped. I thought whoever it was had left Maud until I heard it again. The faint whisper, "Room 7, open up." I ran to the window and tried to open it, but it was painted shut. The whisper turned into slow breathing, deep and wet right against the door. Suddenly, the breathing stopped. I listened for movement, nothing. I backed away, trembling. Then from behind me, a voice spoke. "You're in my room." I spun around. The closet door was wide open now. Inside, standing in the darkness, was a figure. Tall, thin, its skin gray like paper soaked in water. Its mouth stretched too wide, lips trembling as it breathed in short bursts. I stumbled backward, hit the bed, and fell. When I looked up again, it was gone. The closet was empty. I didn't wait. I grabbed my bag and bolted out the door, sprinting down the hallway. Every light flickered as I passed. At the front desk, the old man was still there, staring blankly at the counter. I shouted, "There's someone in that room." He didn't even blink. He just said, "Room 7's been closed for years." I looked down. The key was still in my hand. Only now the tag didn't say 7.
It said 13.